Hey guys, it's Mr. Schwartz here. We're going to continue on with more factoring techniques. Today's lesson is going to cover how to factor a trinomial where the leading coefficient isn't 1. So we've seen before that when the leading coefficient is 1, we're calling that a type 1 trinomial. This will be for trinomials where a is not 1, and we're going to call those type 2. So type 2 trinomials are going to be when a is not equal to 1. Okay, that's what we're looking for there. So if we take a look at the pattern we see here, this is a review. Notice it says to multiply using FOIL. Okay, we would multiply the first two terms together. We get 2x squared. We do the outer two together. We get 6x. The inner two gives us 1x. We put those together mentally and we get 7x. And then if we do the last two, we get 3. Okay. So we can see here when we multiply two binomials, binomial times a binomial, we end up with the trinomial whose leading coefficient isn't 1. And we could see the difference here between the binomials. We have a 2x and an x instead of just having an x and an x. And things actually get a little bit more complicated. All right. Feel free to actually work through these other three binomials times binomials. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working through a new technique now. Okay, and what we're going to be looking for here are factors of A and C that combine to B. Okay, and that would be the technique that we're going to use for what we're calling here type 1 trinomials, which are trinomials in this form where a is not equal to 1. Okay, so we're going to apply that down below here. Notice we have a trinomial, okay, and the leading coefficient is not 1. So we're looking for factors of 5. Now the good news is 5 only has two factors, 5 and 1. Okay. So that has to be the combination that we're looking for to go into our first two spots here. We have 5x and x. That's the only two terms that would work when multiplied together. That would give you 5x squared. So we know that has to be correct. Now we're looking for factors of 3, and this one was chosen specifically because there's only two factors of 3, 1 and 3. So our only options here are to put a 3 here and a 1 here, or a 1 here and a 3 here. And if you notice, folks, today I'm using pencil, and that's because really this technique, and I'm going to come back up here a little bit, is also referred to guess and check. Okay, and notice I have a pencil here because it has an eraser, and there are going to be times when I have to erase what we have in order to get to where we need to go. So let's say, for example, I put a 1 here and a 3 here. Okay, what we're trying to do is we know a 1 times a 3 will give us a positive 3, but we're trying to create 8 here in the middle. So when I use FOIL to check the outer and the inner is going to give us 15x, the inner is going to give us 1x, and there is no way of creating 8 with a 15 and a 1. So that means this can't be the correct combination, and I'm going to go with a 3 and a 1. Now when I go to check, I have a 5x and a 3x. 5x and a 3x, I can create 8x. We're going to make both of these positive, and then we're going to check it using FOIL. And that's another benefit of being able to do FOIL mentally, and we would see 5x times x is 5x squared, 5x times 1 is 5x, 3 times x is 3x. That gives us 8x, and 3 times 1 is 3. We're checked, we're good, we're ready to go. Okay, so we're going to work through a couple of these in order for you guys to get the hang of it. It is one of the hardest techniques to learn. Okay, we see here I have a trinomial, leading coefficients not 1. All right, factors of 2 have to be 2x and x. It's the only combination that's going to work. Factors of 3, we'll write that down for 2. I have 1 and 2. It's my only combination. Factors for 3 again, 1 and 3. And those are my only combinations here. So it's either going to be a 1 and a 3 or a 3 and a 1. And I'm trying to create a -5. This is telling me one of these has to be this negative here. The negative that belongs to the 3 is telling me either the 1 has to be positive and the 3 negative, or the 1 negative and the 3 positive. And we're going to get a feel for that as we put these in the right place. Okay, so let's say, for example, we want to put a 3 here and a 1 here. And this one's a little tricky already, because here I would get a 2x and a 3x. Can we create a 5 with a 2x and a 3x? And the answer is yes. But remember, we said one of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. So if I make one of them positive and one of them negative, we still can't create a -5. All right? So I'm going to have to switch these. I'm going to make this a 1 and this a 3. And here I want to create a -5. So that means our 6x has to be negative and our 1x should be positive. And that's the combination that I'm looking for. And again, I would check it using FOIL if we had time, but we're going to keep moving for you guys to get a feel for what happens when there's more than one combination that could work. Okay? Now we have 6 here. This is a type 1 trinomial. A is not 1, so we look for our factors of 6. I could have a 1 and a 6 or a 2 and a 3. Those are possibilities for 6. And with my 3, I could have a 1 and a 3. Okay, so these are some possibilities that I'm looking at. I go to set this guy up. And I always start with my 6 and my 1. I always start with the number itself and 1. And we would go through the possibilities. Maybe this is a 1 and this is a 3. And now we check. Can I create a -11? And these are the type of questions you want to ask as you work through these. Can I create a -11 with an 18 and a 1? And the answer to that is no. So we're going to switch these guys up. Put a 3 here and a 1 here. And I got to check it again. Can I create a -11 with a 6 and a 3? A 6 and a 3? And the answer to that is no. So what that tells us is that 6x and 1x must not be the correct combination. It must be these other two, 3x and 2x. And now I look for factors of 3, which could be a 3 and a 1 or a 1 and a 3. And sometimes we can get lucky right away. Here I got a 9 and I have a 2, and I can create a -11 if I make this a -9 and a -2. And then just make sure in the end you go through and you check using FOIL. Do the first two give us 6x squared? Do the outer and the inner combined give us -11? And do -1 times -3 give us a +3? Well, then that is what we're looking for. These are our factors of this type 2 trinomial. Okay, so moving along, just so you guys can get a feel, I don't always write down all the possibilities like we did in the ones before. As we start getting the hang of this, we can make this 3x and x. And now I'm looking for factors of 6, which could be a 1 and a 6. Let's write those down. A 1 and a 6 or a 2 and a 3. Those are the ones I'm going to try. So if I try a 1 and a 6 here, I get an 18 and a 1. And right away, I got really lucky because 18 and a 1, I can create 17. I would make this a +18 and a -1. and I found the combination right away. I don't have to try a 6 and a 1 or a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 2. There's only going to be one combination that works, guys, okay? So as you take a look at this, that's what you're looking for, that one combination, and this is the combination that works and that we want. Okay, there are some more practice problems that are on the back. There's 1 through 6. If you flip your math notes over, we're going to pick up next time we meet with 7 through 10. Okay, I'll sign the homework that makes sense for you guys to try those. And then maybe when we get together live, we can try 1 through 6 that's on the back. But 1 through 6 are good practice problems if you want to give those a try. And as I said, I'll assign the homework so you guys can get started on that and get that into Google Classroom. I hope you guys are doing well. All right, hope you guys are doing well and hanging in there, being safe, washing your hands, and hopefully we'll be out of this soon, okay? But keep up the good work. You guys are working hard. End of the marking period's coming up on Wednesday, and I will see you guys soon, okay? Take care, be safe, hang in there. See you guys.